Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another video on ForgottenWeapons.com. I'm Ian McCollum and I'm here today at Legacy Collectibles taking a look at a particularly impressive and remarkable Luger pistol. This is a Heinrich Krieghoff of Suhl made Luger, and it is one of a batch of magnificently embellished pistols that were manufactured probably for Hermann Göring. We know a few things for sure about this, and there are a few other elements that are a little speculative. What we know for sure is that 4 of these pistols exist, very well documented, which is, by the way, why I've got the book here. This is the authoritative reference on Krieghoff, primarily Krieghoff Lugers, but some of the other things that Krieghoff did as well. And 4 of these guns are well and thoroughly documented and photographed in this book, and their provenance coming back with Allied troops from World War II is pretty solid. We know for sure that 2 of them were actually ordered personally by Hermann Göring. One, because basically the Krieghoff company has documentation showing that. In fact, one of them came back to Krieghoff because it had been stored in a case, kind of like this, but not this case, a case that had acidic felt or leather or something on the inside that actually ate away at the finish, and so Göring returned the pistol to the factory for them to touch up. What's most likely, it seems, is that these were ordered as a batch of probably something like 8 or 10 guns all at the same time, because they're all presentation guns with a presentation date. The date is the same on all of them, but we don't know who they went to. It makes sense that Göring would have ordered these because Hermann Göring and Heinrich Krieghoff had a pretty close relationship, and that is why the Krieghoff company was able to get a whole bunch of Luftwaffe contracts. In fact, originally, Krieghoff got into the military arms business by taking a contract to make 10,000 Lugers specifically for the Luftwaffe. And they almost certainly got this because of Krieghoff's personal relationship with Hermann Göring. They would then use, they were, by the way, very well made, very high quality pistols, and they used that reputation to sort of pivot into other aspects of the arms industry and ended up making a ton of machine guns for the Luftwaffe. So, as one would sort of expect from fascist cronyism, this wasn't a very lucrative set of deals for the Krieghoff company. And Hermann Göring got some very fine, fancy pistols out of the deal as well. So let me show you this up close and a few of the specific details on it, because association with Göring or not, it is a gorgeous pistol. All right, this is a fairly vintage-looking case. This is the case that the gun came in. By the way, the provenance of this piece is that it came out of the Jeffrey Sturgis collection, and Jeffrey Sturgis was a very significant collector of early automatic pistols and Lugers, wrote a 3-volume just encyclopedic book on the history of the Luger and Borchardt pistols. Anyway, I don't think this is the original case the gun came in. To be honest, we don't know if these pistols originally came in cases at all, or if Göring purchased them as just pistols, and when he gave them away to people, those people made cases, or perhaps an American GI who brought this home had this case made for it. At any rate, it's a decent, nice case, and it is definitely vintage. Looking in a bit closer here, we have a platinum-plated loading tool, which is nice. We have an original cleaning rod with a little oil bottle in it. This has 2 matching magazines. So there's one of them, and the other is, of course, in the gun. Then, now, the pistol itself. This is the part that we are really interested in. There is one presentation Krieghoff that is gold-plated, but the rest here are platinum-plated, which is really kind of remarkable. That's unusual, at least in my experience. The gun looks fantastic, that's for sure. The grips are engraved ivory, and they have this motif. In fact, both the grips and the metal have this motif of oak leaves and acorns, which is a very traditionally Germanic style for this sort of thing. Now, with the exception of the gold-plated gun, which doesn't have a panel like this at all of the platinum ones have this open presentation panel, and they're all engraved with exactly the same thing. The company, Heinrich Krieghoff, Waffenfabrik Suhl, and then a date, which is August 15th, 1939. We don't know exactly what that date signifies. It is probably the date that these were presented to Göring. The guns were probably made a year or so earlier than that, or they would have been taken from parts production that was a little bit earlier. What we assume happened here, by the way, is that Göring bought these to give away to his various cronies. There was some suggestion that they may have been given to a couple of German generals. None of that seems to have panned out. Back in the 70s, when Gibson wrote his book on the Krieghoff, two of the alleged recipients were still alive, Dönitz and I don't remember one of the other generals, and both of them claim to have not only not received these, but never actually heard of them. So who did they end up going to? We just really don't know. But almost certainly, I think it's not inaccurate to use the term cronies of Hermann Göring. The serial numbers are kind of unusual and remarkable on these guns. Krieghoff basically made like 13,000 Lugers for the military in total. They made a very small number of pistols, relatively speaking. Their serial numbers are consecutive and sequential for the military order, starting at 1 and going up to somewhere in the 13,000 range. The presentation pistols are all 5-digit numbers, running from the very high 16,900s to the 17,200s. And it is still a matter of some discussion and speculation as to exactly what those serial numbers mean. There were also some presentation guns that were made in the 28 and 29,000 range, and so there's lots of theories about how these are codes. These serial numbers are actually coded data of some sort, maybe indicating production year, but none of that is really authoritative at this point. None of it is 100% makes sense. Regardless, the magazines do have matching serial numbers, and the workmanship on these is really quite excellent. I mean, I guess you would expect that. Companies probably not going to want to present someone like Hermann Göring with something that isn't really excellent quality. He was something of a connoisseur of artwork, or at least thought that he was, and yeah, not a guy in a position that you want to offend. So you can see the relief engraving here is really, really nice. If we take a look at the toggle, one of the few original marks left on the pistol was the Krieghoff toggle marking. They have that HK with an anchor, and that's the logo of Krieghoff. You'll see that same marking on the Krieghoff military Lugers. However, the chamber area doesn't have any date code or other markings. The rest of the pistol is not serialized on the outside, so you would normally expect to see serial numbers, for example, on the bottom of the side plate and takedown lever there, and they don't exist. Because this would have originally been a gun that was taken out of military production. In fact, we can see that. We have that little 5-pointed star on the front of the slide. That indicates that that slide, at least, was removed from military production, which means it would be set aside for commercial production. And this was taken from, a batch of commercial production guns. Krieghoff did make commercial guns that were not specifically this platinum engraved batch for Göring. Oh, and the safety marking remains in place there. So the engraving coverage on here is pretty much 100%. The only thing that's been left bare is the body of the barrel right there, which is plated but not engraved. And there is a little bit of engraving around the muzzle there. Overall, a gorgeous piece of workmanship, setting aside its personal connections. This is one of the examples, there are a lot of guns that are allegedly Hermann Göring's or allegedly Adolf Hitler's or allegedly anyone else's, and this is one of a relatively small number of examples that actually are, and that have the documentation and the provenance to prove it. If you want to know more about Krieghoff and their pistols and their production during the war, the book to get is Krieghoff Parabellum by Randall Gibson. Unfortunately, this book is out of print, long out of print, and very expensive. So, sorry, good news, there's a book out there. Bad news, you can't get it. But it does have really good documentation of these pistols in particular. So, hopefully you guys enjoy the video. A big thanks to Legacy Collectibles for giving me access to this remarkable, not quite one of a kind, but like one of 3 of a kind Lugers to show to you guys. If you're interested in this sort of thing, definitely check out their YouTube channel. I'll link to it down in the description below. They have a whole bunch of similar material that I bet you'll enjoy watching. Thanks.